somehow the killing of the giant spider, all alone by himself in the dark without the help of the wizard, or the dwarves, or of anyone else, made a great difference to Mr. Baggins. He felt a different person, and much fiercer and bolder in spite of an empty stomach, as he wiped his sword on the grass and put it back into his sheath. "I will give you a name," he said to it, "and I shall call you Sting." So, here we go. Since this furnace-shaped sword is fueled by an ember of Everflame, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Everforge, Forge Eterna. Because yes, I'm also going to add an Italian translation of each sword's name. It's something that I've been doing ever since I started the Swordtember, because I believe that a good name for a sword must be able to be translated in multiple languages. I think that we have the right name for this entry. So, here we have it. For a nice sword born from the ice of a frostworm, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Frozen Fang, Zanna Gelida. I think it can fit the theme. Look at this, look at the shape. It's a huge ice blade that resembles a fang. For a sword fit for a brave thief who's not afraid of chasing the most dangerous treasures in the world, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Bandit's Bravery, Prodezza del Bandito. To honor the strength and willpower of Princess Dagger, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Royal Judgment, Verdetto Reale. An ode to both Dagger's heritage and Alexander's power as the strongest eidolon in the world of Final Fantasy IX. So there you have it, Royal Judgment. And at this point, it was very easy for me to choose the name for this sword. So here it goes. For a sword that is fit for a magician and allows a mage to unleash its magic power in a completely different way, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Spellblade, Magilama. Here we go. This is the name for this sword. For a sword that is meant to emphasize the greatest virtue and strength of a sword knight, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Valiance, Valor. It's just a simple term, but it represents these swords and what a knight that wields these swords is going to stand for. Here we go. For a sword that is meant to carry out final sentences and to embody the most extreme concepts of justice, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Lawmaker, Legislatrice. Choosing the name for this sword was particularly easy. So here we go. For a sword that is meant to inflict as much pain as possible, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Painbringer, Recadolor. Here we go. For an alien sword with the power to destroy almost all kinds of metal and substances from a deity known as the Starworm, I will give you a name, and I will call you Wormtear, Draco Squarcho. I found what I believe is the right name for this weapon, so here we go. For a sword based on an Art Deco pillar that is meant to be an elite weapon for a city that is meant to be a giant suite of armor where everything can be a weapon, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Pilastro Pregiato. I know what name we can give to this sword. So, here we go. For a sword fit for a dancer devoted to a bloodthirsty deity, and because of the purple shroud attached to the pommel, I will give you a name, and I shall call you Crimson Haze. And here we are. For a sword fit for a non-explorer that ventured many different planes full of incredible dangers and perils, I will give you a name and I shall call you Vinebane, Spezzaliane. Not a fancy name, but it fits the fact that this machete-like sword has been able to cut down almost all kind of trees throughout a multiverse. And since it's a double-bladed anchor-shaped sword to celebrate two sport athletes, I wanted to give something that would evoke both the twin-like aspects of the blade and also the aquatic theme of the competition and this particular discipline that is diving. So here we are. For a sword inspired by two diving champions, I will give you a name and I shall call you Twin Tide, Marea Gemella. So here we go, everyone. For a sword fit for a rogue and based around using lots of tricks and deception, I'm going to give you a name and I shall call you the Slice of Hand, Inganno Appuntito. Because one of the things that I noticed about Sleight of Hand, when you translate it to Italian, it can also be translated as inganno, trickery. So the literal translation for the sword's name will be Sharp Trickery or Sharp Deception. But I think that Slice of Hand, it's far better. Here's the name that I chose for this sword. Here we go, everyone. For a sword fit for a librarian that uses knowledge as power and can turn this book into an actual improvised sword, I will give you a name and I shall call you Spada Sapiente, Scholarly Saber. Because this book is actually a catalogue of swords. Now, this is the second annotation, the scriptures for each of the swords included in this book, and this book in particular is the grand catalogue of sword making. Imagine this. By reading about how to forge and craft swords, the librarian can use this knowledge to turn the book into a sword. And in this case, it's a very simple idea, but it's going to be the name of this sword. So here we go, everyone. For a sword born by a cataclysmic event triggered on a planet by an almighty cosmic god, I will give you a name and I shall call you Force of Nature, Forza della Natura. I think it's perfect, because after all, this planet, this planetary sword, is a worldwide natural disaster ready to be unleashed against other worlds. It's basically all the natural disasters of an entire planet ready to fall upon other planets. Again, since the wielder of this sword is meant to be a space explorer, I decided to call this sword with an apt name. So here we go. For a rocket-shaped sword fit for a space explorer, I will give you a name and I shall call you Voyager, Viaggiatrice. It's a very shining sword, and we can go for this other name. I decided for something very simple, so here we go. For a sword inspired by the sun, I will give you a name and I shall call you Brightblade, Lama Lucente. So here we go. For a sword fit for a boisterous fighter that uses a gun with a sword attached to it, I will give you a name and I shall call you Hotshot, Grosso Calibro. Again, in this case, Grosso Caliber literally translates from Italian to huge caliber. In this case, a more appropriate translation would have been big shot. But like I said, I think that Hotshot feels more boisterous and arrogant. Perfectly justifies the silliness of this design. To point out the fact that this is a reference to Rob Liefeld, I put a couple of ammo pouches around the hilt. So, we can go for the naming ritual of this sword. For a sword based on the Art Nouveau style, I will give you a name and I shall call you Gilded Leaf, Foglia Dorata. A very simple name, but again, I wanted to emphasize the leafy aspect of the guard. So, here we go everyone. For a sword fit for the captain of a special paratrooper corps, I will give you a name and I shall call you Caduta Libera, Freefall. That's it. I believe it's a perfect name for a sword of a paratrooper corps. So, here we go everyone. For a sword based around a dream catcher and created specifically to fight against nightmares, I will give you a name and I shall call you Taglia Sogni, Dream Cutter. Here we go. For a toy sword wielded by a kid that would inspire unarmed defenders to mount one final defense and give one little glimmer of hope to this defending army, I will give you a name and I shall call you Fermezza, Staunchness. I think it works properly. It's some kind of poetic choice. Here we go everyone. For a sword made by a merciless archdemon that will grant incredible power to the wielder in exchange for their life force and the destruction of their own essence, I will give you a name and I shall call you Rovina, Ruination. A simple but effective name for a sword that invokes despair. So here we go everyone. For a silly sword meant for intransigent game masters who wanted to properly deal with unruly or disruptive players, I will give you a name and I shall call you Mannaia del Maestro, Master's Mincer. Because I found out that Mincer is also another type of knife, like I said, similar to a cleaver. In this case, it really emphasizes the fact that the game master can go ballistic and start mincing and annoying players like meat. And it's gonna be really painful. So there you have it everyone. So here we go for the name of this sword. For a sword inspired by Hollow Knight series song and represents Hornet's nature as a traveling warrior and huntress, I will give you a name and I shall call you Viaggiatrice Vermiglio, Vermilion Wanderer. Of course, in English the initials are slightly different, but they also sound similar. But in any case, here we go with the official name for the 27th sword. For a sword inspired by the wicked spirit of the Kuchisake Onna, I will give you a name and I shall call you Sfregia Sorrisi, Smile Carver. That's essentially the name of this sword. She will scar your smile forever, if you're unlucky enough to cross the path of this evil spirit. So, here we are everyone. For a sword meant as a punishment for someone's sin, I will give you a name and I shall call you Penitente. Penitent. This is a sword of a penitent convict who's trying to atone for his past sin, but unfortunately for him, he will have to carry his sin with him for the rest of his life, unless he gets broken by this sword. So, here we are everyone. Let's go and give a name to this sword. For a prehistoric sword based on the deadly claws of a velociraptor, I will give you a name and I shall call you Velociripper, Velocitaglio. And this was the 29th sword of Swordtember. Here we go everyone, let me go to the full screen view of the sword. For a sword meant to symbolize the completely boundless imagination of surrealism and surrealist art, I will give you a name and I shall call you Flusso Libero, Free Flow. And there you have it everyone, this is the last sword of this year's Swordtember.